Hey everyone, I recently released a festival track called Remember What It Feels Like, and here's how it sounds. It's already available now on all streaming platforms, so be sure to check it out after this video. Let's dive into the project here. The first part we're going to start off with is the first breakdown, and the first sound you hear is this reverse sound, so I'm going to play for you now. And I think it's just really nice texture or detail to add, and to do this is to grab like a pad-ish kind of sound, cut out the first chord, put lots of reverb on it, and then bounce it out, reverse it. As you can see, there's a bit of fade, and then what I like to do is to cut a bit of the first section of that audio file, just make sure that there's no artifact in the sound. And then building on the atmosphere, obviously there's a piano, there's also this pad, and this piano one note. Something I really like to add in my productions, just add a bit more texture, something in the background which is different to just pads. Make sure they have lots of reverb on it. Also the velocity is quite low as well compared to the other sounds. And then talking about one note, there's also this string which plays a sustained one note. For something like this, make sure to change the articulation to a legato to make sure it actually sound like what it's supposed to sound like. And then to fill up the low end, there's a respace, which is made using Vital with 2 oscillators, 2 octaves and 1 octave down. And then I think we should talk about the vocals. So this is the recording. It's a really well recorded take. I just added a bit of de-esser, some delay as well, really minimal, and obviously some reverb. Then in the second round, the break, I've introduced some other elements. Just this organ sound. There's also a shaker loop as well as some strings, additional strings. And then let's just fast forward to the second break before we get onto the build. I've introduced this arpeggio. It's really amazing sounding arpeggio. Made using basically a piano, and put lots of reverb, a bit of imaging as well, stereo tool, and also this plugin. I really like to use Fresh Air from Slate Digital. Just add a bit of high-end presence, or you can also add like a mid kind of presence as well. I'll play with and without the effect. So as you can hear, without the effect, it sounds a bit dull. There's a bit of more sparkle with the effect on. And also I want to talk about this string here. Goes up, up and up. And I think I really like this because it really creates a dramatic effect. And also I forgot to mention one technical thing about the chords, which is the humanizing element of the chord. So what I did to this MIDI region is to go to MIDI transform, and then click on random velocity, and also after that humanize as well. So what it does is offsets the notes a little bit, just a tiny little bit, to make it more organic, like a person actually playing the piano. And also the random velocity also help with that as well. So now let's jump to the build up section. So as you can hear, first off, there's very dramatic transition. So I use loads of impact effects, downlifters to create that. And then the main part of the build up is the automation. One of which is this one, which is like a trick that I usually do. So we basically bring down the gain level a little bit just before the drop. In this case, it's minus 1.9 dB. And what this does is that it makes sure that the sound before the drop is lower than the drop itself, so that just makes it, when the drop hits with a lot more impact. And then the usual things such as a little bit of a high cut on the leads, if I can find it. As you can see here, I'll just play it for you, I think. Let me find it. So start off filtered, and then as we progress, it opens up, and then what I did here is actually to bring it back down again, and then to go up when the drop hits. This is similar for the bass. There's a little automation, local automation for the bass line, and then as usual, to create a lot of tension build up, we use a lot of effects like got some drum rolls, sweeps and downlifters, especially when the drop hits. Here, play the effects. And one thing about using these effects is that when it comes to choosing an effect, make sure that the pitch is actually correct. Otherwise, it might sound a bit off and not really fit together, glued together in the mix. So now let's move on to the main section, which is the drop itself. I'll show you guys first off how I made the kick, because for this one, actually, there's actually three sections, actually 3 layers to the kick. There's a bit of a top kick here, and there's 2 other main kick sound. And the purpose of this is really to add a bit more transient so it shines through the mix a little bit better. And then next is the drums, which is there's like a ride claps, drop claps, some drum loops, and then the main drums is in this bus. There's this tom I made to add a bit of rhythm to the lower frequencies. And then obviously in the second round I didn't choose a lot more effects, such as these hi-hats and claps and all these different fills. It's really important for a track like this. And one effect I really like is, one sound I really like is this snare. It just adds a lot of drive to the drop. And then moving on, we've got the bass line, which is made up of a few layers. There's a sub bass, obviously. There's like a mid bass and then a bit of saw bass as well. And then I bounce them out into these regions. As you can hear, there's a lot of sidechain going on as well, so just make sure that the bass ducks when the kick plays. And then from building with the low frequencies, we move on to the mid frequencies, which is these drop chords. This one is made using Vital. Really simple, 2 basic saw waves here. And then this was also similar, but the MIDI here is a bit different. This is sustained notes, and then this is like cut into the rhythm. Obviously, again, this is sidechain, really important. And then the next is probably the main element, which is the leads themselves. I'll show you the lead melody. As you can hear, there's lots of transient in the lead there. It's made of lots of layers actually. There's this weird layer as well, and then there's this layer, and then the interesting thing about the lead is that there's actually pitch bend. If you listen carefully, I'll just show you how I made that quickly. I'm not sure if it's in here. Right, and so in Logic the scale goes from plus or minus 64, and so I set the bend range in Vital to 16, I think. Yeah. So that means that 1 semitone is equal to 4 in the scale in the Logic window, and then you can adjust how much bend you need, which note sounds better than others. And then one extra thing I added with the lead bus is this instrument, which plays 1 note. It's a bit of a weird layer, but I think it just adds a bit of drive, a bit of grit to the overall sound. And then in the second round there's a bit of a fill, so I cut up the kick on the last beat of the drop, of the last beat of the bar, and then there's a drop snare in that last bar as well. And in the second round is just pretty similar, but we introduced a lot of the elements earlier on since the first round of the drop, and also I introduced the arpeggio in the second round as well. It's always important to maybe include new elements or take in old elements from a drop to create a more dynamic nature to the song. And that's basically how I made this track. Don't forget to go stream the track, and hopefully you've gained some new insights on music production. And be sure to like the video and subscribe to follow my journey.
Take my hand and let's go.